Round 2 of the S.O.R Sprint Enduro Championship series saw us moving to an exceptional venue at Nitchie Valley MX, an hour northwest of Calgary, Alberta. This round featured more technical tracks for both the cross and enduro tests than riders saw at round 1. And the afternoon's enduro tests were made exceptionally more technical after a massive rain and hailstorm rolled through just as they were scheduled to start. The cross test also featured some natural MX track sections that could have rewarded the Moto First pros, but in the end, it wasn't a substantial advantage at all. Now let's dig a little deeper into the story behind the race, starting with the pro men. Round 1 featured total dominance by series newcomer Dylan Caleb, and after the morning's cross test, he was back on top. Owen McKill took advantage of his ISDE experience to take the first test by a strong 5 seconds over Kalin, and round 1's third place finisher Taryn Gerber on a wet track. But Kalin quickly got back into the swing of things by winning the remaining 4 cross tests in very convincing fashion ahead of Gerber, McKill, Jared Stock, and Boston Montgomery. Kalin was simply dominant in these tests, emerging with a 21.46 second lead over Gerber and a 26.79 second lead over McKill. Our key performance metric here at the Enduro Bureau is percent difference in time, and Kalin was over 1% faster than Gerber and McKill. Yeah, this doesn't sound like a lot, but in the context of sprint enduro, it's pretty damn good. Behind Kalin, Gerber went 2.22.2.3 through the cross test, with McKill finishing up with a 1.3332 result. In the race to fill out the top 5 in the cross test, multi-time Canadian ISDE team member Jared Stock started to show the form he's capable of after a tough round 1 performance. Stock went 5.5.464 to finish the morning in 4th overall, ahead of Canadian ISDE World Junior Trophy team member Boston Montgomery. Montgomery had a somewhat brutal first test that saw him finish all the way back in 8th overall, 13.5 seconds behind McKill. He was able to pull it back together to finish the cross test, though, with a 4.5.45 string as he battled with Jared Stock and finished 5th for the morning. We also want to point out an incredible ride in the first cross test by Vet A racer Mike Roberts. Roberts came absolutely storming out of the gates on test 1 and threw down a 6th overall finish for the test. An absolutely mega ride. Things fell apart for Roberts from there in terms of the overall, but we were still pretty stoked for the old man on that first test. As the morning wrapped up and the switch to the afternoon's enduro test was underway, a massive rain, hail, and thunderstorm rolled over the race venue. We're not sure what the total rainfall was, but it had a huge impact on the course, eventually leading to the removal of an enduro-cross style section that had substantial parts completely underwater. Race organizers also made the decision to cut the afternoon to 3 from 5 tests, but this was later changed back to 5 tests for the pro men after a rider's vote following test 2. All of that being said, the enduro test got underway just as the sun came back out, and the racing was intense as Kalin put to rest any doubts that he was a Moto First rider by winning test 1 by 1.5 seconds over McKill in the slick conditions. Boston Montgomery put in a strong effort for P3 on the test, but we also saw Taryn Gerber start to give back time from the cushion he built in the cross tests as he went 8th overall in the test and then 5.9.74 over the remaining 4 tests. Wyatt Bruder came from deep in the cross test mid-pack to shine in the mud, going P4 on the first enduro test and then 4.4.38 on the last 4. Similar to Bruder, XC and hard enduro specialist Travis Reed also came from the morning's mid-pack to come alive on the enduro test course, going 5.3.3.4.2 in the technical conditions. But the real story of the afternoon and the day was the battle between Kalin and McKill. The 2 series leaders swapped first and second place test finishes over the first 4 enduro tests. Crucially, though, McKill lost 18.5 seconds to Kalin on test 3. This could easily have been a fold up the tense moment for McKill with a deteriorating course, but he managed a massive comeback on test 4 to put 17.5 seconds back into Kalin, physically catching him just before the finish of the test. McKill still had an approximately 22-second overall deficit to Kalin coming in the final test, though, and that final test turned out to be a killer for Kalin, as mistakes on his side and a vicious ride by McKill saw McKill take the test by 26.27 seconds, which was enough to secure the overall victory by 4.524 seconds. Just an incredible afternoon of racing between these two. Taryn Gerber did enough with his cross-test time cushion to take 3rd overall for the 2nd week in a row, ahead of Montgomery, who held off Jared Stock by 4.444 seconds to take 4th overall for the 2nd round in a row. The real difference maker on the day were the final 3 enduro tests. McKill had absolutely nothing to lose after the 3rd test where he lost that 18.5 seconds. After finishing 2nd at Kalin at round 1 and then again the morning round 2, McKill talked about how he wasn't racing for 2nd place finishes.
I think 2nd place I was satisfied, but that's not the goal for me this year. I feel like I know that I belong up top, and I just gotta run with those guys. So.
On the other hand, you also can't blame Kalin for perhaps racing test 4 a bit more conservatively, given A, the lead he had after test 3, and B, the deteriorating and highly slick course. Coming out of round 2, we see McKill take over the leaders plate in a points tie with Kalen at 47 each. Taryn Gerber sits in third overall with 40 points, ahead of Montgomery in fourth with 36 points, and Jared Stock in fifth with 31 points. On the pro women's side of the race, we knew there were going to be changes from round 1, as Shelby Turner was away on GNCC racing duty with her enduro engineering team at the Hoosier. Round 1 second place finisher Destiny Slingerland was also away with MX racing priorities, which left the door wide open for Kristen Broderick to take over the series lead at round 2. To make things interesting, though, Canadian National Enduro champion Melissa Harton made a rare appearance at a sprint enduro, and we knew that she was a threat to win the round. In the end, though, it was Broderick, who was runner-up to Harton in the National Enduro Champs last year, who dominated by running the table to win all 5 cross tests and all 3 enduro tests. She came out of the cross test with a 1 minute 47 advantage over Harton, which was not entirely unexpected, as Harton typically excels in the more technical races. The big surprise was that Broderick put another 1 minute and 4 seconds into Harton in the brutal enduro test conditions and course. This felt like a bit of a breakout ride for Broderick, and it was a very well-deserved victory on a very challenging day. Courtney Schmalley came through for third on the day after keeping the leaders in sight on the cross test, but then losing significant time in the 3 enduro tests. Still, it was enough for her to take over second overall in the series with 38 points to Broderick's 45 points. Harley Lawson only completed 1 of the 3 enduro tests in round 2, and now sits in third overall with 34 points, 5 ahead of Oshie Hampson. Stay tuned for all our round 3 coverage, and don't forget to check out our raw video from round 2 on our enduro.bureau.official YouTube channel.